Uncle Lucky here, and welcome back to another episode of Comic Book Cuisinart. Today is going to be a special episode for Comic Book Cuisinart because today, at the time of filming this, it is the eve of the dawn of justice. And I think we're going to dedicate this episode not to the Uber fans, mind you. This is not for the hardcore comic book fans that read and devour thousands of comic books a year. This is going to be more for the people who like Superman, like Batman, like Wonder Woman, but don't collect a lot of comic books. They don't run out and buy all this stuff up. They just like the characters themselves. Probably go to the Batman movies when they're out in the theaters, probably went and saw Man of Steel, but aren't so much into all of the mythos and all that thing. The thing is, there's nothing worse than when you're sitting in a movie theater, at least for me, and you're watching a comic book movie and something pops up. Somebody says something, something gets shown, a character gets introduced, or there's an Easter egg, and everybody in the audience around you goes, ooh, or ah, or whatever. And then you're kind of going, huh? And it happens more often than you would think because of just the way the guys that put out these movies and the girls that put out these movies love their comic books and put their little Easter eggs in there, stuff to hunt for. So what we're going to do in this episode is, there's a lot of rumors going around. Rumor mill has been going crazy about this movie for a long time now. A lot of funny ones, a lot of crazy off-the-wall stuff. But we don't know anything about the movie, to tell you the truth. They just had a special viewing of it the other day. At the time of filming this, I think it was like 2 days ago. A lot of the press was invited to come and see the movie, and a couple of other people, but they were on a NDA, non-disclosure agreement. They couldn't talk about the movie. They couldn't do any reviews and write-ups and all that stuff. They could come out of the theater and tweet that they liked it or they didn't like it, but beyond that, they weren't allowed to say much. A lot of the tweets were interesting because a lot of the people said, if you've been watching the commercials closely, this movie has got a spin that you won't believe. It's not what you think it is, whether that be good or bad. They're just saying that, you know, whatever we've been led to in the commercials, that's not the thing. It's got a whole bunch more depth to it. But the movie is 2 hours and 30 minutes long. So, let's start with all the rumors and all the fun stuff that goes with this, and I'll explain anything that pops up through the course of the movie if it happens. For example, let's start with the first rumor I ever heard about this movie. Now, this first rumor actually kind of coincides with merchandising, and it's interesting when we talk about merchandising because if you really pay attention to the merchandising, the toys and all the things that are coming out for this movie, if you really pay close attention, there's subtle hints in there. For example, there was a toy that came out called Nightmare Batman. Not a lot of us actually quite understood what this meant. They were calling it Nightmare Batman a long time ago. But in the commercials, if you go back and watch them, you'll see Batman is dressed in a suit, a different kind of suit. He's got goggles on, and the screen looks a lot more hazy. It looks like he's out in the desert or something, and he's fighting these elite guard-looking type guys. Well, it turns out that that is some kind of a either nightmare, as they're calling it, or a dream sequence, or something that is alluding to what happens in the Justice League movies that are coming up. So you kind of get a taste of what's going to happen. But the toys were the first ones to really name it Nightmare Batman. So leading into this, you've got a character that might be in the movie. It's speculation, it's rumor, it's hearsay, it's all that stuff that people are guessing at. But we'll start with Bizarro. I find this interesting that I'm talking about Bizarro because it's kind of a stretch. It really is, but it could happen. It could be in there. And for any of you that don't really know anything about Bizarro, I'll start with the merchandising. Now, I bought this little bad boy for my wife a little while back. It's Wonder Woman. She's into her. You know, Wonder Woman's a cool character. Love it to death. But if you look at the back, this is the interesting thing. You've got Superman right here. But then you've got Superman here. Colors of their outfits are completely different. One's brighter and more outgoing, the other one's darker and dimmer. So, would that mean anything? Well, if you just glanced at it, probably not, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility that the answer is right there just in the merchandising, like Nightmare Batman. So the story of Bizarro in a nutshell, very simple. Bizarro showed up in the 1950s comic books. He was actually fighting Superboy, not Superman. He was a product of Krypton. General Zod created him, an army of clones. That backfired, and Zod went to the Phantom Zone for being a bad boy, and his little ray that he used to create these clones ended up on Earth, where the man himself, Lex Luthor, started using it to try and clone Superboy. When he did this, he created Bizarro, but he knew it was a disaster because the Bizarro was pale-faced, creepy-looking, more of a monstrosity. Throw in the Frankenstein storyline of him seeing a little girl who's blind and the little girl loving him for who he is, not as a monster because she can't see him. So it was an interesting storyline way back when. And it's had its ups and downs. They've changed it a lot, and things have happened through the course of years. But if you're looking at a picture of Bizarro right now, you would realize that that wouldn't work in this kind of a movie. So the rumor is that it's going to have Bizarro somewhere in there. You have Lex Luthor, of course, who has got Zod's body and can do what he wants with it in his little lab. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that a Bizarro character would show up in the movie. He's not going to look like the comic book Bizarro because that A, would give away way too much, but B, it just, his look for this DC universe wouldn't really work in the movie, I don't think. So a lot of people have noticed where this rumor started a long time ago was that if you really look at the commercial a couple of times, the different clips that they've got together, Superman looks downright angry. I mean, he looks super pissed, he looks dangerous, he's always scowling, his eyes are always glowing red like he's getting ready to shoot somebody, and that's not a typical Superman feature. Even if you go back to the Man of Steel, even at his angriest, the angriest that he got in that movie, controlling his powers and learning about them, was when Zod hit his mother. So, where we're going with this is, in the commercials, Superman looks a little bit too angry a lot of the time, and that's where I think where the rumors came from that that could be the Bizarro character. So it's, again, it's probably a stretch, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. So, next up, we've got Bizarro out of the way. The next one is pretty much a given. We know that it's, if you look at the commercials closely, and I've had to go back and pause them and have people pause them for me and show me all of this stuff, that the Nightmare Batman sequence that we were just talking about involves Darkseid. Now, this is going to be the funny part because a lot of people that don't really know anything about Darkseid or don't read the comic books going into the movie, the first time, if they actually do show Darkseid, they're going to be going, they're going to say boo. They're going to be, this is mocking Marvel. This is Thanos. I'm not going to start a fanboy war with this, really. It's very simple. Darkseid has been a comic book villain for a very long time. He is one of the big ones that the Justice League always fights. As a matter of fact, in the comic books right now, I know if you're not reading the comic books that you'll pass by it, but they're having a really big war with him right now in the comic books, and it's a very big story arc that's been going on forever. So, Darkseid was the original. Okay, I'm going to put the fanboy thing to rest here real quick before anybody shouts to the heavens. A lot of guys at Marvel Corporation have pretty much said without a shadow of a doubt that they stole the idea of Thanos from the Darkseid character. His look, the way he just is such a towering monster, he's almost of god powers. A lot of the characteristics were taken from DC's Darkseid. So, that out of the way, it would be kind of weird to have a Darkseid when Thanos is getting ready to take his anger out on the characters in the Marvel movies, but he is one of the biggest, baddest villains in the DC universe, so why not use him? And he looks super cool, so why not use him? But it's been shown in the Nightmare sequence in a couple of paused frames from the commercials that Darkseid's logo, the upside down horseshoe, his logo that is on his belt and everything else, is burned into the ground in one scene. You can see it. And it looks a lot like his parademons, his little minions, are snatching up people while Batman's doing the Duke-a-roo with somebody else. So it's pretty much there. I'm going to say it's a really big confirmation that even if Darkseid's not in the movie, that his foreshadowing will be for the Justice League movie, which is going to be the big bad that they're going to have to fight. And, you know, that's where that stands. Next up we have Lex Luthor, the Mad Scientist. Now, a lot of people don't seem to realize that Lex Luthor has been around for a very long time, and his original character didn't even really have a name. He was just a mad scientist. He was in a lab doing bad things when Superman shows up to stop him. He was just a mad scientist. He didn't really even have a backstory. It took a while for them to actually create more of the Lex Luthor that is better known now. So Lex Luthor was a mad scientist, and they've already shown in the commercials. If you, again, go back and watch the commercials, watch some of the YouTube videos where they slow everything down and stop it frame by frame, you'll see a lot of the mad scientist Lex Luthor in this movie. It's almost in your face in a lot of the scenes. We know it's coming. He has General Zod's body in his freezer, somewhere in the basement, I'm guessing. He's got kryptonite. He's got a whole bunch of lab people around him at any given time in the commercials. He's doing the mad scientist thing, and he's got to have a genius-style intellect and level. So it's going without saying that the Lex Luthor that we're going to see in the movie, the facade up front, is just like the Bruce Wayne, the playboy kid who made his money through internet stuff, you know, the guy who created YouTube or whatever. That's his persona. But his background being a mad scientist, and it's going to show when we get to Doomsday. Now, this movie is 2 hours and 30-something minutes long. It's a long movie, and what they're probably going to be trying to throw everything, the kitchen sink, not just the kitchen sink, the utensils, the plates, just whatever they can find to get us into this new DC universe of movies, because it's already planned for the next decade. They're going to have 2 DC movies coming out pretty much a year for the next couple of years that they are riding a lot on this. So they're throwing everything at it. Doomsday still remains to be seen what that is going to be. But when he inevitably shows up on the screen, let's talk a little bit about Doomsday. Now, when Doomsday inevitably shows up on the big screen, there's going to be probably some controversy surrounding this one for the hardcore fans, but for the people going in that don't know anything about Doomsday or have just heard a reference of him, Doomsday is an ancient Kryptonian, okay? Now, he was around long before any of the other Kryptonians that we know from the movies and comic books and stuff were walking around being all science-y. He was, for the most part, an ancient creature of the planet, and it was such a harsh hell world at that time that almost nothing could survive on it, and only the strong did. After his race basically died off, they found the remains of one, cloned it, and kept cloning it, and kept cloning it, and kept cloning it until they were good and satisfied that this thing was really pissed off, basically. The original name of this creature was the Ultimate, and when they woke it up and kept cloning it, and they pissed it off even more because it hurt. And when this hurt, and they kept hurting it, and they kept hurting it over and over and over again, it got finally to the point where this creature, the Ultimate, hated all life. That's its real only emotion, is hate, anger, just rage. It hates everything, and it destroys anything in its path. Now we'll go through a whole long story arc of other things that the Doomsday creature did on its way to Earth, but Doomsday is most notably remembered from the 1992 comic book where Doomsday killed Superman. Shows up on Earth, I mean, it's a pretty basic storyline. Shows up on Earth and beats Superman to death. That's it, really. I mean, you got some words in there somewhere. Somebody was talking about something, and somebody saw him fly in, and some cars crashed, and the two of them met up, and he beat Superman to death. That was the big to-do in 1992. That sold a lot of comic books. It really did. I mean, you can't keep a good Superman down, naturally. He came back, but Who cares? It's sold comics. So inevitably, when we see Doomsday on the big screen, it's probably not going to be that story. We're not sure yet. Again, 2 hours and 30 minutes. They can talk about a lot of stuff in 2 hours and 30 minutes. They can cram a lot of things in there. But pretty much the rumors or the guesses being that they have Zod. They have him in a freezer, and Lex Luthor's going to do something creating the Doomsday clone or whatever they want to call it in the movie. The ultimate, when it's created, is going to have something to do with Zod. Where that's going to go, we're not sure. But I'm pretty sure he's not just going to show up from out of the sky, from outer space, and just start killing Superman, because that's a different story altogether. Again, it's kind of odd that they threw Doomsday into this scenario, if it is in fact Doomsday. I mean, we don't really know yet. We saw a creature slide down the side of a building and huff and puff for 2 or 3 seconds, and it kind of looked like Doomsday. It looked like the Ultimate, but we don't know for sure. I mean, I can't get all riled up until I see the movie, because in the end, it could be a complete bait and switch. We don't know yet. But that's just a little bit about the Doomsday character and what he represents in the comic books. So when he shows up, we'll just have to wait and see. There's going to be a lot of build-up for this movie. In the movie itself, I think there's going to be so many things thrown at us. There's going to be so many Easter eggs. You know, just the littlest things that people kind of gravitate towards. You know, when you're watching the commercials, there's a question mark on one of the pillars, you know, in a building somewhere. It's a question mark. People read all into certain things when they see this kind of stuff. You kind of guess that it's going to be the Riddler, but who knows? Is he going to have a cameo in the movie? We're not sure. I did read the Internet Movie Database write-up of who's in the movie, the actors, and it's a huge list. I mean, this list is massive. There's so many people at the end of the list that are uncredited, it's unreal. I've never seen a list this big. But the question is, are there people that they're intentionally leaving out until the movie officially launches from this list? We know that Cyborg is supposedly going to be in the movie. We know that The Flash is supposedly going to be in the movie, and Aquaman is supposedly going to be in the movie. Whether they're in the movie for 5 minutes or the last half of it, we don't know. It could be a big battle royale where everybody shows up to fight Doomsday. Who knows? It's up in the air at this point in time. But there's a lot of background characters that are also going to be more of the Easter egg. There's a character named Ferris. Well, Ferris goes with Ferris Air. Is that a part of the Green Lantern mythos? Is she destined to be more of a part? Is she going to play the love interest of Hal Jordan? You know, that's the connection for Green Lantern, possibly. There's a lot of stuff to speculate about, guys. It's crazy. I hope the movie's good. I'm going to go enjoy it for what it is. It's going to be the first time that Wonder Woman's ever been on the big screen. That's amazing in itself. Gal Gadot looks amazing. She's gorgeous. She looks the part from the few commercials I've seen, but she seems to, as a human being, a real person, she seems to very much gravitate and grab this character as her own. She's very strong-willed, it seems, from the interviews I've seen with her. She looks like she's going to do a very good part in this movie. I'm waiting for Ben Affleck's Batman, his interpretation to come through. I'm giving it a chance. Just from the last commercial where his fight scene was, that's 10 times more Batman fight scene than I've seen in the last 5 Batman movies. It was just that good. Superman's awesome. He looks good. He looks the part. You know, will he be playing his own mirror image of Bizarro? We don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. But you guys tell me in the comments below. What do you think? Is the movie going to be good? Is it going to go down in flames? What's it going to be? Let me know. You guys have a good one. I'll catch you on the next episode.